today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make this in honor of Veterans Day. Stay tuned. Alright, first of all, happy Veterans Day everyone. In honor of Veterans Day, we're going to create a waving flag. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to do an American flag, but you'll see that the technique is the same regardless of whatever flag you're wanting to use. So let's go ahead and kick this video off and get started. So first thing I want to do, the way I want to problem solve this is I want to create two pieces. I want to create the pole, and then I want to create the flag. So let's start with the pole first. So this is very, very easy. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to create a cylinder. And I don't need 32 vertices. Let's just do probably 8 should be sufficient. I'm going to drag the radius down to something much smaller. Like that. About like 0.16 meters. And then the depth, I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not trying to scale it to what it would be in real life or anything like that. Just trying to show you guys how to build this thing out. Alright, so there's our pole. Up here in where the file names are, or the model names are, I'm going to go here and hit F2. I'm going to call this model.pole. Hit enter, hit M, create a new collection, call it flag, create, and now it's in its own collection. And just so I can eyeball it very quickly, I'm going to select the blue color because that's typically what I do when I create a mesh object. I usually put everything under the blue collection there. So pole is pretty much done, but while we're in here, before we start making the flag part, let's go ahead and clean this up. So I'm going to go to edge select mode here, select this edge. I want to get the bottom edge, and I want to inset them. You'll see what we're doing here. Gonna do a little bit of an inset, not much of one. I tell you what, let me back up and do something a little bit different. I want to bevel them instead of insetting. I want a level 2 or 2 segment bevel. Then I want to inset. Face select, select top and bottom again. You'll see when we run the subdivision modifier on here, it's going to keep it kind of clean. Do that, and I'm going to delete the faces for each one. Go back to edge select mode, select this bottom one, and I'm going to fill it with grid fill. I'm going to do literally the same thing on the top. I mean, I could even like cut this thing in half and do a mirror modifier if I wanted, but just for the sake of just getting this done, I'm not going to do that. So let's go back in here and select this edge as well. Grid fill, okay, and I'm going to build it all the way up, and basically what I'm doing is creating some edge support loops so that when we click on this and I hit Control 2, got a nicely formed smooth pole. I'm going to click on it, right click, and go to shade smooth, and the pole is finished. Okay, so we're done with the pole. So now for the flag, this ought to be pretty easy. So 3D cursor's at the origin. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to create a plane. I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees, like so. I'm going to move it on the x-axis out a little bit. I'm going to get it close to that pole, but not directly on it. I'm going to go to Edit, Vertex Edit mode, and I am going to size it up. And I want to size it out on the x-axis, make it a little longer than it is taller. And I'm literally just eyeballing it. If you want this accurate, take a flag measurement, and basically you can go into the in panel under item, and then you can, not when you're in edit mode, but when you're out of edit mode, and you can go into dimensions here, and you can specify the size that you want your flag to be. But I'm not going to do that because, as stated before, all I want to do is show you guys how to build this thing. So there's our flag. Let's go up here and let's name it F2 model.flag. It's in the same collection, so we're good. I'm going to go here, go back to vertex select mode, right click, go to subdivide, and I'm going to hit Shift R, which will repeat the last command. Let's do about 6 times. That'll give us a lot of geometry, and as you can see here, there's a lot of geometry in there, right? But here's one little trick. Notice I don't have any depth. This is a flat surface one thing I want to do is I want to go to vertex select mode. I want to select this top vertex here, and then I want to get this one single vertex at the bottom, and I'm going to go here under the data tab. I'm going to click to add a new vertex group. I'm going to call it pinned, P-I-N-N-E-D. Then I'm going to hit assign. Okay, go back to object mode, go to the front orthographic view. I'm going to move it on the x-axis just a little bit, because I want it to look like it's touching that pole, even though it kind of is. It's not technically connected to it. Now, if you really wanted to get detailed with this, you could create like some sort of chain or some sort of rope, and essentially do something very similar to make it look like it's connected. But like I said, we're just going to do a quick and dirty version. So now that we have all the subdivision in here, then first thing I want to do is I want to go under physics. I want to create a cloth physics simulation. I'm going to take my quality steps up to 7. I'm going to scroll down where it says, I think it's under shape. Yes, under shape. So there's, see where it says pin group? I'm going to choose my vertex group I created called pinned, and what this is going to do, it's going to keep those two vertices in place regardless of whatever, if we add wind or whatever on this to make this thing move around, it won't move those two vertices. So you're going to see what it looks like. It's going to look like a flag that's connected to a pole, and it's going to be blowing in the wind when we get done. So while we're in here, I also want to scroll down where it says collisions, open that up, and I want to turn on self collisions. Notice I'm at frame 1, which is what I want. I also want to click out of here, click the pole, and under physics I want to hit collision. And that's fine to leave that where it is. Right now there's 100% gravity, so the flag will initially just drape down. When we run the playhead here, let me turn the end panel off or hide it, and let's see what we get. Now it's going to be a little choppy because I'm on a laptop, but actually let's not do 250, let's do 200. So I'm going to do 200 frames instead of 250. The physics will have keyframes, the total number of keyframes that you want for the simulation. And here as well, I believe it's under cache. Yeah, it's right here in the cache. So instead of end at 250, you know what? Let's just leave it, because the simulation will create 50 extra frames, regardless if we use them or not. And if I come back in here and decide to turn 250 on, we won't have to either rebake it or replay it again. I'm not going to bake it for the sake of this video. Let's just go ahead and play and see what we have here. See, it's starting to drape right up here and right down here. So there we go, we got a flag at least. Now we haven't run shade smooth or subdivision modifier on it yet, but we'll do that last. Let's get the animation like we want it. And I'll tell you, we don't need to continue here. I can click in here, now we can play it up to the frames it did render. So right, it's just drooping, so we're halfway there. So let's go back. I'm gonna go Shift A, I'm going to go down to force field, and I'm going to create wind. I'm going to add a wind in there. I'm going to move it on the x-axis a little bit back. I'm going to rotate it on Y by 90 degrees, and if you notice, the arrow is pointing towards the flag, which means that the physics of the wind will be blowing towards the flag. Since it popped it in at the origin, it's directly aligned with the flag. In order to prove that, I'm going to open up the orthographic top view, and as you see, we can see our pole here, and then we can see this arrow is right on this x-axis with that. So go back to hitting 1 on the numpad to orthographic front view. I'm going to go into the physics properties for the wind, and I'm going to set this for 12,000 for strength. Okay, and now let's select the flag. Let's go under physics for flag, and then under the cache settings, let's go ahead and do a bake. It's going to bake out from 1 to 250. So that shouldn't take long on this machine. And now, through the power of editing, what we can do is we can come back down here on the timeline. We see that we're at frame 1, and let's hit either space on the keyboard, or you can just hit this little button here to play forward, and we'll see what we have. And we have a flag that is blowing in the wind. Now, the material looks fairly heavy to me, so there are some presets. Pause that and then go back. There are some presets here when you click on the flag that you can select, but you can't while it's baked because it's cached, right? So let's go ahead and delete bake. Let's go back up here to the top, and you'll see this list menu here. You'll click it once, and you'll see you've got cotton, denim, leather, rubber, and silk right here. Let's click on cotton. So what that'll do is it'll put in some presets here to mimic this material to look like cotton. Then I'm going to go back down here to the cache section, and I'm going to click bake once more, and we'll be right back. Okay, now we're back. Let's see what this looks like after the bake. And it's going to look a little rough because we haven't done the shade smooth yet. Yeah, that looks more like a flag now. And let's pause it. Let's go back to frame 1. I'm going to bump that up to 250 because remember, we cached out to 250. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is if you notice in the beginning frames, the flag drops a little bit. It's almost as the wind back there is ramping up. One way to get around that, a quick way to get around that, is like figure out where you want the animation to really start with your wind blowing. I'm going to say 90. So under the start frame, type in 90. And we'll go start right here instead. So you never see the flag dropping in the beginning. Like so. There's your animation. Alright, so now we've got that. Go back to the first frame. Let's turn on Look Dev and let's put in a texture and texture this thing. Alright, I am now in the shading tab, and I'm just looking at the front orthographic view. And let's go ahead and take care of a couple things while we're in here. I'm going to click on the flag. I'm going to right click, shade smooth. And I also want to go to look dev mode, and let's turn off scene world. And now I've brought in an image of the US flag. You can use any image you want, or you can go online on the image search very easily and find a flag texture. Or if you are pretty good at doing illustration work, you could actually make one. I've made plenty of them over the years. But anyway, I just want to show you guys how to do this. So right now the flag does not have a material, and if we go over here under material, we notice that there's nothing here. So I'm going to use the nodes to do this one. So I'm going to click new here. Give it a second. And now what I want to do is click in here. I'm going to type in material.flag. So I'm going to name it, and if you notice up here, it duplicates the name because essentially this is the same material. I'm going to crank my roughness up a bit, probably like 0.936 or 93% roughness. So I don't want a whole lot of sheen coming off of it. And I'm going to create an image texture here. So I'm going to drag out my node from the base color, and it brings up like a little search. I'm going to do image texture. I want to connect on the color node. And if you have Node Wrangler, so if you look at any other YouTube videos with Blender people, you guys should know what Node Wrangler is. It does come with Blender. However, for some crazy reason, it doesn't come installed by default. So if you want Node Wrangler, you go to Edit, Preferences, go under Add-ons, and you type in that little search NODE for Node, and you just want to make sure it's checked. Once it's checked, then you go here to the hamburger menu, which is what that thing's called, and you click Save Preferences. But since I've already got it checked, it's a bunch of shortcuts with nodes. It's pretty awesome. So what you can do is you can click Image Texture like so, and I can hit Control T, and it automatically pulls in my texture coordinate node and my mapping node. And you guys will see what that does. Alright, I went ahead on my machine and I found the texture map I had saved for the US flag, which is the same one that's over here. And now, as you can see, it's been applied to the flag. The good thing about this one is I didn't have to do any UV mapping because it was an appropriate size. However, in your case, if you have to do UV mapping, then you want to go to the UV editing tab up here. Go, give me a second here, guys. Turn look dev on in here. And what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to hit open. You point to your file. Now, granted, in my case, I've already got it in here. And you can kind of see it here, but the geometry is so dense because that helps it make all the little creases and the bends and all of those things. When it's animating, it just looks more realistic. And if you notice here, if I select everything here and I come back and select here, the flag is literally perfect. So I don't have to do any UV mapping, but you may. So if you have to do any UV mapping, this is where you want to do that. If you guys require a UV mapping video, let me know and I will at some point make one for you. But anyway, let's go back to, now we've done this shader here. Actually, while I'm in here, let me click on the pole. I'm going to hit new. And this is going to be pretty simple. We'll call it material.pole. I'm going to make it metallic. So I'm going to crank metallic up to about 90. Let's do 95% or 0.95. I'm going to turn the roughness down, not a whole lot, because you know those poles aren't like chrome or anything. They're not super shiny. You don't have a lot of polish. I'm going to do like 0.425 for the pole. I'm not worried about putting a ball or an eagle or anything like that up there. If you guys want a ball or an eagle, you feel free. Knock yourselves out. You can make your own. But for this tutorial, I just didn't want to do it. Let's go to layout again. We are still in Eevee, which is fine. You can render this in cycles or you can render it Eevee. For my sake here, I'm just going to stick with Eevee. And we do need to move the camera around. So let's find what I think is a pretty decent view on the flag shot from like the bottom up. Just to kind of show more of like a majestic kind of pose. And on the keyboard, I'm going to hit Command-Alt-0. And there's that. I'm going to go down to pick my camera, go to camera settings. I want an 80mm focal length. I'm going to camera. I'm going to back it out a little bit. Like so. Move it around a little bit. Feel free to compose the shot like you would like. And let's go back and play this animation. Okay, so I'm losing the flag down at the bottom, so let me come back here, back out just a little bit more of my flag. But I don't want to get the part at the top where that top of that pole is clipped off. Like maybe something like that. Let's play it again. Just back it out just a little bit. Maybe something like that. Also, you guys can come in here, go to render view and look at it. So if you notice there are no lights on it, the quickest way to fix this is by putting an HDRI on it. And before I do that, I'm going to go here under render settings. I'm going to go to film and I'm going to hit transparent to make the background transparent. And I am going to put in an HDRI. So the way you do that is you go to the world settings, you can hit color, you can hit environment texture. So I found an HDRI on my machine that I thought looked pretty nice. It's an nice outdoor scene. And now we have illuminated lighting from an image on here. So I'm going to go back to the 90th frame, which is our first frame in our sequence here, and I'm going to play it out in Eevee render mode. And there's our flag, and notice it stays pinned at the top and bottom where we define those pins. There you guys are. You've made a waving flag. Good job.